Hello, I'm Jake Boudrot, Civic Journalist at Tillhill Community Television. This week on The Record, a worker at the Porcupine Mountain Quarry dies after being injured on the job. Richmond Municipal Council held a special meeting on July 22nd in Arichat. After the meeting, I spoke with Warden Lois Landry and Deputy Warden Brent Sampson. An assault suspect is scheduled to return to court on August 6th. Provincial funding was approved for municipal infrastructure projects. The Nova Scotia Community College partners with Arichat Canada to provide food services on its campuses. The Housing for Healthcare project continues in Port Hawkesbury and is unveiled in Guysborough. But first, an Inverness County District RCMP officer was charged with sexual assault. The director of Nova Scotia's Serious Incident Response Team said in a press release issued on July 22nd that they had reasonable and probable grounds to believe that an Inverness County District RCMP officer committed a criminal offense. On May 17th, CERT said in the release that they received a referral from the RCMP after an adult female alleged she was sexually assaulted by one of their officers on May 16th. The parties are known to each other, CERT said, noting that they started an investigation into the matter that day. As a result of the investigation, CERT said that on July 22nd, Constable Manis Paré was charged with sexual assault. CERT said Paré is scheduled to appear in Port Hawkesbury Provincial Court on August 19th. As the matter is before the courts, CERT said it will not provide any further comment on the investigation. Chief Superintendent Dan Morrow, Criminal Operations Officer with Nova Scotia RCMP, said the RCMP takes all allegations of misconduct very seriously. Morrow confirmed that Paré is currently suspended with pay, and all disciplinary avenues are being pursued through the RCMP's internal conduct process. Morrow added that Paré's duty status will be continuously assessed through the court and internal processes. For the second time in 3 years, an employee at the Martin Marietta quarry in Auld, Cove died from injuries he sustained at work. Department of Labor and Advanced Education spokesperson Sarah McNeil wrote via email that an officer from the department's safety branch responded to a safety incident on June 17th at the Porcupine Mountain Quarry. McNeil wrote that an injured worker was airlifted to hospital where he later died. Since the investigation is ongoing, McNeil wrote that the department cannot share further details at this time. She said, and I quote, "Our thoughts are with the family, friends, and co-workers as they mourn their loss." On July 11th, 2022, a fire at the quarry claimed the life of Kevin Lang. McNeil wrote that a thorough investigation was completed and no charges were laid in that case. At the special meeting of Richmond Municipal Council, a $7,500 grant request was approved to help the Acadiaville Community Centre Society install a wheelchair lift at the hall in West Arichat. With general grant funds dwindling and more urgent grant applications to approve, Deputy Warden Brent Sampson agreed to provide the Lordways Jolly Club with $1,000 from his district fund to install a heat pump at their facility. So maybe you can explain how the Jolly Club project you mentioned is not as pressing as the others, and maybe you can explain why that is.
It was just the ask was 100% of the project, so it's very rare that we'd fund things to 100%. I mean, there's no hard rule that we can't, but it's not something we've done normally in the past. It would have been nice to have funded it to 50%, but the fact was we had a couple other issues here. One was this. The situation in West Arichat with the hall with the two different levels, and it was an accessibility issue for people, right? And after reading, the information they sent us, it was understandable why they were looking for this. And the other one in Grand River, where they're doing one side of the church roof, and they've had some leaking there. There's limited funds. It's a big cost. It's a high roof to do, and it just those things were a little bit more pressing than the heat pump was for the Jolly Club, but I hope they're able to, come up with the rest of the funds and we were able to help them somewhat, just not to the extent that we would have liked to.
Council discussed a $7,500 grant request from the Grand River Presbyterian Church to repair the church roof. Council also discussed a $20,000 waterfront development grant request from the Village on the Canal Association in St. Peters. And Council approved a sponsorship ask from the St. Peters Pirate Association.
CDF Waterfront Development Fund. So, and I think we've recirculated that. Just a reminder, I think the original report that came out from the Director of Finance said that we hadn't spent any of those dollars. We actually did commit 10,000. Yep. So, but we still have a good chunk of money in there. So this one is for Waterfront Development Grant Tier 3. Maximum request can only be 50% of the project. It is from the Village on the Canal Association, and it's regarding the splash pad. So I'll throw it out for discussion if anybody has anything. You can find that package starts on page 101 in your online package.
So looking, is the total of the project 480,000? Is that what we see there?
So the provincial government contributed 360,000. Thank you. 360,000. There's been community fundraising all along, and so the specifics of this one are laid out there. I do want to just sort of say that I did some math on this, and they don't appear to have included HST when they calculated the 40,000. I actually, when I did the math, it's actually more than 40,000. Because all of the things that are there, when you actually go to the actual quotes, it includes plus HST. So, but and there is some, we have been very clear that we expect projects not to begin until after approval has been granted, and there are kids playing on the playground, on the splash pad. We've seen video, I went and saw them. This project is outlined as it's been described to us in phases. So, Deputy Warden?
Yeah, so I'll make the motion that we support it to the tune of the 20,000. And it's partially because I'd just like to officially get discussion started here if somebody wants to second that.
Would I be able to say that just is your motion 20,000? When we have done these in the past, we've always written them contingent. Actually, there's a kind of a draft here. Village on the Canal, approved Village on the Canal Association grant application for the Tier 3 waterfront development to the amount of $20,000 to be allocated from the CCBF, subject to assessment by staff as to the project's eligibility.
This is some of the questions. Okay, and if that's how we,
Yeah, we wrote out the motion as similar to the others. So that's the motion, and I'll read it again just because it to be consistent with the others. So moved by Deputy Warden Sampson, I'm looking for a seconder, that Council approve the Village on the Canal Association grant application for the Tier 3 Waterfront Development Grant Fund in the amount of $20,000 to be allocated from the Canada Community Building Fund, subject to assessment by staff as to the project's eligibility. So that's the motion.
I'll second that motion.
They speak of getting a lease after the fact. Would we? I don't know if we care that they own or lease this property or not. The letter of support is not even signed, and the project's already started, as you mentioned. Those are issues I have. The group in my community they were told very clear, if you start anything, you're not getting it. So this seems to be something different. I know it's been created with a phase 1, 2, and 3, but the project is, as you stated, is being used. So I'm kind of confused as to what this commissioning and extra work is for.
Yeah, there's no question, and that may be something that the CCBS folks say, hold on. I've taken pictures of the because I was there with family, and I see that they're looking for armor stone, and I believe there's actually armor stone already there. So it may very well be that some of the phase 3 things have started, but maybe they're going to do a different thing. On this matter, It is subject to CCBF eligibility, so I'm happy to defer to that. But I respect your wishes to consider it a different way.
Considering what happened with the group in my community, I couldn't support it.
We have a motion on the floor and a seconder. Is there any other discussion? Deputy Warden?
Yeah, just to confirm, and I don't want not to put anyone on the spot, but I guess maybe I am. Yeah, is that criteria but not starting though? If we generally the same thing with the, like I know the waterfront development's been kind of treated differently anyway. So is that like I'm just trying to think if look up the policy on it. Yeah,
The policy lists all three of them under
as the same thing.
umbrella.
Okay.
But they've explained how they are justifying that as in a phase 3. So if that gets through staff, through CCBF,
I guess at the end of the day, it's not up to us to police it necessarily, in the sense that if staff looks over this and feels that no, this meets the requirements, then I'm fine with it. We're making a decision assuming that it meets the requirements, because there are lots of times that there might be projects we don't know if they started or not, because we may not have physically seen something, yeah.
the previous version of this policy. And through sort of conversations, we came up with some things that maybe we wanted to change. In our revision, in our discussions about changing the policy, I don't think we ever once said, it's okay with us if they've already started, right? And I mean, I know that I told the Holland Discourse, you cannot buy a single thing. We've had conversation with people saying, look, I know your quote's going to expire, but you cannot buy that until, so we've been pretty clear about that. And I'm not, because this is going to CCBF, I'm happy to have them, decide if that meets their criteria, because it is phases, whether that is if that's okay to them. If not, it has to come, there'll be some other request to us.
Whether or not it started, though, does that matter as far as CCBF goes? Like, in the sense that I don't know that they're going to consider that, right?
Not sure. We raised a flag with us.
Okay.
We'll wait and see what they come back with.
Okay.
Just going to say, a lot of the federal and provincial funds you cannot start. You cannot put a shovel in the ground. I can't speak for certain that this one is the case. And it has to meet one of their, whether this falls in the recreation, because this is earthworks around a recreational site. So hopefully that ticks enough of the boxes to fit that criteria, right? So.
Yep. And I'm just reading from what they wrote. In keeping with Richmond County's grant policy, we are applying for $20,000 from Richmond County to support 50% of the final phase, which is set to begin in July. So, I'm hoping that we can get them the information that CCBF says yay or nay, and then, I mean, we did inquire, like, we did support, for example, the playground in Arichat, not through the construction, but we did, provide $1,000 for grand opening, that kind of thing. Like, there may be something else. Did we?
Oh, yeah, probably 4 years ago. Yeah.
Oh, many years ago. Yeah. In the initial design phase. Yep. Yeah. Before anything started. Yeah.
2021.
Yeah. Okay.
The project's been, it was a long process.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm fine with it if it meets the criteria, basically, at the end of the day, because it's not up to me to police whether or not this is exactly what started or not. I think it's like anything else, though. If we had, if it's something in our own district that they had started and staff says, hey, listen, doesn't meet the criteria, well, it is what it is. That's what's set out. So I'm fine with making this motion, assuming it's met the criteria, and if it comes back to us that staff determines that it hasn't, well then, it's not up to me to argue it. Yeah.
So there's a motion on the floor. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Councillor Marchand, and can we have that recorded? And just a reminder that we have quorum, but it's only 4, so we can let Councillor Mumbercat know that she can come on back in. And so then, are you coming back? You're not Pirate Association?
Nope.
Yeah. Okay, great. So we'll welcome Councillor. You're just a really good pirate. That's right. Yep. So. This is a little earlier in your package, so if you go to second item in your package, you will see that there is a sponsorship request from the Pirate, St. Peter's Pirate Association. So I'll throw this out to, so can I put the CAO on the spot a little bit to just give us an explanation about how this money sits separate? And how much we have in this?
Sure. Within the approved budget for this year, we have $7,500 put aside for sponsorships. Sponsorships are outside the grant structure, and we're working on getting this in September's or October's bylaw and policy meeting to put some framework around this. But right now we don't have a framework, so it's in front of council to determine at what level, you want these sponsorships coming to you, and which ones would be fine to be dealt with by administration. And for this one in particular, where does council feel comfortable sponsoring this event for this year?
And as I recall, we have sponsored the Superport Days this year, but I believe the one in
Cape Breton Partnership,
what was the partnership?
the summit this fall.
But that was in the last fiscal year. So this fiscal year, it's just Superport. Does that sound right?
Superport and Cape Breton Summit, the summit that'll be this fall.
Oh, coming up this fall. Yes. Okay. And the one. Yes, maybe. Yes. Yep.
And then there's the AMAN conference,
Okay.
because it's in Cape Breton this year.
Right.
The municipalities.
Okay.
had
So we
to-
have enough money that we're not in a panic at this point.
Superport has its own. It's
Oh,
a funding
right.
contribution.
Yes. Okay.
Under the grants is Cape Breton Partnership Summit. I
This
want
fall.
to say it's 1,500 or 2,500. Do you recall, Shelley, offhand? It's 15 or 25. AMAN's is 2,500. We're 25. Inverness is 25. Victoria's 25. CBRM is like 9,000 on their own.
Okay.
And,
Well, that's 6,000 already.
No, I think he was talking about the other
it's
municipalities
about
there.
5,000 for us. That's gone.
Yep.
Between Cape Breton Summit and the AMAN's conference.
Plus
Plus the
1,000.
1,000 takes you up to 6. So you got 1,500 left.
Okay, so we have $1,500 in our sponsorship, minimum case. Okay, so for those folks following along on page 35, there is captain's chest level of sponsorship at 3,000, first mate is 1,000, quartermaster is 500, buccaneer backer is 250 to 500, and backhand donor under $250.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yep.
on your grant booklet now, the sponsorships are listed. There is only one there now. It's 500 for the Acadian Festival at Betty DeGraw.
Okay, so
It's right at the very bottom, all by itself.
Oh, yes,
In the
okay.
most recent one.
On this one?
It'd be on the most recent one that was like later today.
Yes. So then we would be at 5,500?
Yeah.
5,500 in
At the
total.
absolute most at this
Yep.
point. So you have 2,000 left to play.
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion that would capture whether we are interested in sponsorship, and if so, how much? Deputy, I'm sorry?
Don't believe we did. We looked for a previous and we didn't find
Okay.
one from Pirates Association.
Councillor Lumbercat.
Yeah, thank you, Warden. So I would, I don't believe they were recipients in previous years, recent years anyways. So I would make a motion to support the request for sponsorship for the St. Peter's Pirate Days for $500 from our sponsorship budget line. So
I'll second that.
Discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
The grant requests that you guys dealt with, as well as the sponsorship requests, those are things that you guys wanted to deal with now, get off the table because of the season.
Right. There are a lot of people who are looking to get work done in the summer when it's easy to work outside, that kind of thing. One of our grant requests was folks that found a leak in the roof, and so they, it's top need to get that done before this year. So we weren't surprised when we had some requests that came in this summer, and we had kind of committed to meeting during the summer so that we could make sure that we got approval out.
So the concerns about the regional funds that are being depleted, it's not that you're not worried about them, but you guys are basically dealing with these, especially these construction requests now because you have to, because of the time.
So what happens is it's not a surprise to us when we get a lot of requests, say March, April, May, June, July, so that they can do work during this construction season. When we get requests in January, February, even those are for, after March, April, May. People just tend to build more. So we started out strong, and we're certainly running out of money in those budgets. But I think that speaks to a lot of community groups that are putting their own time and sweat equity and their own dollars, their own fundraised dollars, into important projects for residents.
Are you concerned about how much money is left for grants and other requests in the, I think it's the regional fund?
Yeah, I think it's probably a concern for everybody, but on the other hand, I mean, you could look at it two ways. We were able to help a lot of groups out this year. I think, this year was a little bit unusual. It seemed there was a lot more requests came in early. I don't believe in the 4 years previous I was on council that we ever got to a point this early where things were depleted to that point. Usually it was in the last month, and we've been very lucky. Sometimes we anticipated it would happen sooner, but it didn't. I mean, it is what it is. There is a little bit left in some of the district funds. There's really not very much at this point, but there's a lot of groups been helped out. Now, when we changed some of the criteria, made it a little bit easier to apply. Maybe that had an impact, but I mean, ultimately, we wanted to help more groups if possible. I think how it played out, we may look at it differently next year. We may want to make, have a discussion amongst council to see, is there anything we could do different? Or maybe we leave it the same. I guess we'll see, but,
Now, District 3 Councillor Brian Marchand brought up his concerns with the ownership or questions of ownership or proof of ownership of the property around the splash pad, but it didn't seem like the others on council shared those concerns since it was coming from a different fund.
Yeah, and it was, they had an agreement with the Lions Club, from what I could understand, that they would run this for a set number of years. So Lions Club's been very supportive of that, and they're very involved in these community groups and trying to do things for the betterment of St. Peter's and surrounding areas.
Cam Sampson with Dundee Hills Vacation Village requested a letter of support from council.
That takes us to a request for a letter or affidavit from Camp Sampson, Dundee Hills Vacation Village. So what is it?
Page 124.
124, thank you. Okay, so as you can see, sorry, go ahead. Oh,
Yeah, I'd just like to declare a conflict on this one. We've done work there recently, so. Yep.
good. Okay, so Deputy Warden Sampson has left the room, and so you can probably read through and read through the number of emails that go ahead here. He is requesting a letter which would form an affidavit. Saying that they have met the criteria for zoning. So item 6, if you're looking at page 125, registration requirements, affidavit from the municipality consenting to the project and confirming that the project complied with zoning bylaws and building regulations at the time it was constructed. And so we had confirmation that on page 126, the municipality can give a letter to support phases 1 and 3 of the Bearland condominiums as a grandfathered campground. And then further, it speaks item number 4 on page 127, a letter of support in principle from staff for an expansion to the condominium phases 4 to 7, subject to amendments by the bylaw can be provided. There's a lot in there about things he doesn't need any letters about and what. But the situation here is that he got a building permit and actually started to build before zoning bylaws went in, and so we just had to figure out exactly what date shovels went in the ground, what date the building, what the building permits at the time, the bylaws were at the time. So we're looking for a motion. Did we run this one out?
Whatever. Chop this up into the 2 motions.
Just one motion, but I just have some questions.
Sure. So I think we need one motion.
One motion.
It's one motion. We'd be looking for council to authorize the warden to write the letter of support for phases 1 to 3 and a support in principle phases 4 to 7, something to that effect.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Seconded by, so moved by Councillor Mumbercat and seconded by Councillor Sampson. So motion and seconder, do you have some discussion on that motion?
One of the emails, hard to tell what the date is because it says from Troy on July 15th and from Cam on June the 5th, but it seems to be John Bain that wrote that. The third last paragraph, it says, there is, however, a possibility that you have some pre-June 5, 2024 approval for phases 4 to 7, in which case that area would also be grandfathered similar to 1 and 3.
If he can supply the drawings that were submitted prior to.
Yeah, but it's being grandfathered after the fact of the zoning coming in, which I don't have an issue with. I don't have an issue with that. But is that the case for everyone? Because he didn't have a permit for this 4 to 7 before that. I think his initial plan way back was something different. And I'm supporting, giving the affidavit. I just find in reading these emails, you're grandfathering something, there's a possibility you did this, this zone allows this, that zone allows that, but the zone that you are in doesn't allow what you want to do, but we'll grandfather that in. It's just all confusing reading the 3 different emails.
He got building permit, development plan, whatever he needed, prior to the date, and I'm losing my notes here, June 5th. So the zoning bylaw came into effect June 5th of 2024. Yes. Anything before that, he can build, do whatever based on the grandfathered bylaws of the day, or lack thereof. Anything that he...
Then there would be no question.
Right, so that's what he's asking for.
To say that you're grandfathering something in, if you got a permit before June the 5th of 2024, all this discussion of the RG zone or the commercial zone is not relevant. So why was there even a waste of time of a discussion about those things?
Probably to make him aware that things have changed now.
But it doesn't matter.
And he's just saying these are the things we need to make sure that they were submitted prior to the date of that change.
But he's grandfathering them.
Yeah, but anything that he wants to start now, I think the idea is they want to be very clear. Anything you want to start now is subject to these rules. So if he's saying, next year I might like to do X, Y, Z, just for the sake of clarity, you are now required.
An affidavit saying the project confirms zoning.
That's only for 1 to 3.
But the motion is 4 to 7 as well. We're giving a letter. That's all they were asking for.
I do not need 4 to 7, I just need 1 to 3.
Okay, good.
Are we not in item number 4 on page 127, a letter of support in principle, subject to amendments? Is that, he's not looking for that?
No, we're
Okay.
only looking for 1 to 3 at this point in time.
Well, that's the motion that's on the floor, is to provide a letter that says the 2 things. The 2 things.
Yeah.
So can we have a motion to amend? Hang on. Can we have a motion to amend to take out the second piece of that? So what we'd be looking for is a letter that says he has, where am I at here? I'm looking at page 125, item number 6, that the project complied with zoning bylaws and building regulations at the time it was constructed, related to phase 1 through 3.
Perfect.
So, Warden, before we go amending a motion, is this not going to just come back to us from on the 4 to 7, phases 4 to 7 that he's done? So then why are,
In my email, it said there's work to be done on phases 4.
so why would we not agree to support it, to provide a letter of support in principle at this time? Like, are we just dragging out the conversation?
You could, unless you see something that's really contentious that you're not comfortable. But again, I haven't heard from my planning department. The 4 to 7 is fine, and you are.
You know, and we could make the wording to include.
Exactly what John Bain says here.
Exactly.
So John Bain.
I don't see a
signed
need to
something
amend
that
this.
said, a letter of support in principle from staff for an expansion to the condominium phase 4 to 7, subject to amendments to the bylaw, can be provided. Yeah. So is it an opportunity to say both things?
Yeah.
And therefore not have to come back if need be?
I wasn't trying to make it
Sure.
bigger than it needed to be.
Yeah, and Warden, I think too, you know, this is one of those projects that began at a time where there were not really a set of rules there. The project begins, now, you know, it's phases. Now there's all kinds of rules. Well, what feels like all kinds of rules now compared to what there was before. So I think this would just be one that we want to maybe try to provide that kind of a little bit of hand-holding, if there's anything that we can do in advance. Like, this seems preemptive to provide a letter of support in principle. Maybe that'll solve some problems for Cam, you know, and I think that development will be good for everyone. So that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor and a seconder about writing a letter that says, go ahead, 1 through 3, and exactly as it's worded here, construction was subject to amendments to bylaws. So, using this language. That's the motion on the floor with the seconder. Is there any other discussion? Go ahead.
So 1 to 3, 4 to 7?
Yes. 1 to 3 is approved.
So,
The motion that I would have made is that we provide a letter of support for phases 1 to 3 of the Bearland condominium as a grandfathered campground use, and further to provide a letter of support in principle for an expansion to the condominium phases 4 to 7, subject to amendments to the bylaw.
what I read earlier, the paragraph above that says, your next phase, second phase, 4 to 7, does not appear to predate the zoning, and therefore will be subject to a rezoning to permit the use. So what is it? It does or doesn't? The planning should know. So what's he going to get that's going to be any different than what planning? Because planning is saying it does not appear to predate the zoning. So all of this stuff is just slowing down this project on a whole. I don't understand what you're doing. But my thing is, we're obviously grandfathering or allowing this project to go ahead. I have no issue with what's happening. Let it go ahead. I have issue with how this is kind of written. It doesn't. And then it says, there is, however, a possibility that you have some pre-June approval for phases 4 to 7. Well, you're saying it doesn't. And then you're saying, oh, there's a possibility. All subjective. I have no issue with this thing.
Right. Okay.
Saying Bearland condominium, but you're saying can't.
Right. I think.
Condominium for the 3 units he has built.
And the campground is something different.
Is that unless you have some documentation that says that you started before June 4th, then you are subject to the new zoning bylaws. And if you would like to move forward on phases 4 to 7, you are going to have to request a change to zoning. And he's opening it up to say, if you have something that shows that you started and that you qualify for grandfathering in, by all means let me know, but it doesn't appear to me that you have. That's what I'm taking from that. So we have a motion on the floor, which is to write the 2 letters as outlined here, and Cam, Sampson, and it can be 2 separate letters. I think I'm happy to do it in 2 separate letters. That way he can use them as he sees fit. Any other discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Those opposed? Motion is carried. Can you just yell out to Brent there? Thank you.
Now the Dundee Hills project, you guys gave
approved a motion to provide a letter of support. Do you see that as a project with a great potential for the tourism industry?
Oh, for sure. It has the potential to open up folks coming to this part of Richmond County in terms of campground sites, high-end campground sites. But whenever you have that, you're talking about in the documents that are public and available online, you'll see, talk of a Nordic spa and convenience stores. And those are things that benefit all residents and increase access and opportunities for tourists that come no matter where they're going to stay. So yeah, we're always eager to support groups. And when they need letters of support for whether it's banks or to attach to funding applications or to attach to certification for whatever, we're eager to get those out as quickly as we can.
Council then followed up on the Richmond Arena report.
Okay, so then the last item is the Richmond Arena report. That is to bring people kind of up to snuff. Or up to speed. This is a report that was requested by council. So there was a motion made at some point through last year, this past winter, where we said we wanted to put money in reserve for the repair of the arena floor. But we wanted to get some assurance that the items that had been flagged in a 2019 report, we just wanted some eyes on the structure of the building. And I certainly would like to start by saying that it does appear through much of this that this building is in much better shape than it should be for a 50-year-old building, and that is no doubt a result of the caliber of the staff that have dealt with this building since it opened, going all the way back to when there was a volunteer board. So I think there is recognition here that there is, humidity control is something that they clearly were on top of and understood the importance of that, because there is clearly almost a sense of surprise that the building, a lot of the issue here is as good as it is. But there are a series of recommendations, for all of my, we all have other jobs and other lives, but in my previous life, if I read the sentence, there is obviously risk in continuing to operate the facility with this reduced structural capacity as it pertains to the life safety of building occupants, is not something that we, as owners of that building, can ignore. So there are a list of recommendations that speak about some work that needs to be done, and the recommendation is that it needs to be done before November of 2025, which I assume, rightly so, means before we open the arena. And some of those things include items that I believe are actually Department of Labor? Who flagged some of that work? Some of the work we already have planned.
Auld.
Department of Labor, right. So there were already some items that we have. I thought Chris said, I think that there's some of these that are going to be fixed anyway as part of the work that was already planned. Yeah, yeah. So, we are. So the maximum is what they're suggesting, what they're not suggesting. This is stated. It is recommended that the building be closed to the public if the snow load on the roof reaches 24 pounds per square foot, and that represents 3.5 feet of light fluffy snow or 1.2 feet of wet heavy snow, and that real life monitoring by maintenance staff or equipment. And it also speaks to cutting down trees on property that we don't own. So quite a lot to go through here, but we are responsible for the residents of the county who go into that building. We're also responsible for our any liability we would incur in the event of the worst case scenario. So opening this up for discussion about anything we would like to, and I personally would like some more information about what's it like. Do you get this real-time snow load monitoring system? Is that like $50 at Canadian Tire, or is that tens of thousands of dollars? I don't know, but I think, and is there anything on this list that our Director of Public Works says, can't do this by November, or is this all just stuff that we can easily do? So I think there's some questions before we make any big decisions, but we cannot ignore a sentence that says, life safety of building occupants.
Chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
As was discussed before budget, that you guys wanted to talk about this midsummer. Your Director of Public Works is pulling together what things will look like for you guys in September. But this was an opportunity, since we were having a meeting, that if you, in the review of the same documents, had other things that you wanted us to dig into, just let us know. Like the statement about putting people at risk. We're asking that to be qualified by the person who wrote that as well. Just because the whole rest of the document talks about how well the building is and what good a shape it is, and however what right, and however what he put in there in that one sentence is quite inflammatory. So we need that qualified against what all the other data in the report is telling us. So Chris is pulling stuff together for you guys to have in September, but if you saw anything else in the document or you had other things you wanted us to dig into while we're digging into this, again, he's looking at what does the live monitoring look at, what are the solutions, and having a couple options for everybody to look at. So we'll have some answers for you in September, so hopefully we can acquire in September and October and be ready to go when we want to open the doors this fall.
So I'll go around and see if anybody has any additional questions you want to make sure are provided, information is provided for our September Committee of the Whole report. So Councillor Mumbercat.
Thank you, Warden. So I guess for me, a couple questions spring to mind, because we've had this since, I think, May. The life, I agree, CAO, that is inflammatory language, and it's a little bit out of context with the rest of the report, but it's also one of those situations where once this cat is out of the bag and this has been brought to our attention, we must act to mitigate any risk. And we're talking about some of the work needing to be done in November. If we're only seeing information in September, and we've had since May, I'm a little concerned about how tight a timeline that's going to be, because if it comes to council and we're making budgetary decisions in September, that's going to take, that'll be a couple weeks. So it'll be the end of September before our regular council meeting. So then October, the work's getting done?
I think some of the work is starting this summer. I should say, like the metal work that's mentioned in here, that's all being done over the summer. As soon as it was identified, that stuff's being done.
Because I think at the end of the day, what we really need is, we have this assessment. There's something being done that we're not necessarily aware of as councillors. It's not our job to be, to know that. But what we need is, in the context of this assessment, what's the work that we've done to address some of these risks in a timely manner, and what are the next pieces and what would they cost? And to your point on monitoring snow load, what does that mean for our staff? I have visions of our staff members after a snowstorm on the roof of that building, and it doesn't sound very safe to me. So those would be my comments. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's anything else. I mean, yeah, these things can be dealt with manually, I guess, if need be, until a more permanent solution may be up there. I mean, tie downs could be placed on the roof, and that's not unusual for commercial buildings to have, somebody clear snow if need be, when you get really high snow loads. But it's not necessarily, as the Director of Public Works said, he had reached out one time, it's not necessarily easy to find someone on short notice. So it may be a matter of planning ahead or contacting, companies that might do that this time of year, and having something set up with them. Not saying it's a long-term solution, but it may be at least for this year. No, I'm happy to hear. We'll get some more information on it, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, just a further add to your comments, Warden, and the comments of Councillor Mumbercat and Deputy Warden Sampson. For me, it's hard to ignore when people talk about the safety of occupants. So that's the number one priority, in my opinion. Secondly, to voice what Councillor Mumbercat said, if we're looking at September meetings and looking to come back in September to discuss what has to be done, I think all the residents know there's been delays the last couple of years with the opening of the arena, right? So what kind of time frame and how tight of a time frame are we looking at if something serious has to be done from September to November, right? So that would be my only concern. Yeah.
Councillor Marshall?
For the lifetime monitoring, I think that's something you can install on the beams anyway, at any point. Maybe it's not a bad idea, but I don't think in November, December, we're going to have snow loads we're going to have to worry about. So I think that'll give us some time anyway. And the fact, yeah. Yeah. That's all. The concern is if any of the buildings locally would be assessed by the same person, I would imagine. I mean, you're putting quite, I guess, a stress on the person looking at any of these buildings to say. So he's at least quantified some numbers, and he would like the building closed. He's not saying the building's going to collapse if it has that. He's going to say this is what he thinks based on the size of those beams, what it can handle. And if there's loads higher than that, then shut it down. And that's fine. I think the public wouldn't be against us, for that. I don't. Maybe Chris can find out what the live monitoring is going to cost, and we can look at putting that in. Yeah, we can look at getting that. Yeah, and I think it's not a bad idea to do that, and all the other necessary work that needs to be done. I think he needs to get that done. He's aware of that. I think he's working on that as well. So I think the report, it states that over 50 years doesn't look like the building has been stressed. I think that's something, because when I was a kid, it was snow all the time. So I'm sure that building had quite a bit on it. Thank you, Warden.
There are, I know in my prior life, if we lost our fire alarm systems, we had to do fire watch, and there's various particular things. And, it could be that there's just protocols that our legal department says, yes, this meets all the criteria for appropriate real-time monitoring, or some sort of mechanical thing. And like you said, it's not every day, it's when there's snow load. My only other concern when I was reading through this is, and I'm not an engineer, but I would like for somebody to go through this in tremendous detail to make sure that everything in the report is included in the recommendations. So on page 5, it says the misalignment, and I am not an engineer, so it may be that it says this in different engineer words, but this misalignment is noted in the items below and should be rectified even though the system appears to be, so rod bracing and so on. So, and I don't know if that's captured in the recommendations. Same for page 6. It talks about, see figure 1, so noted damage and missing items, just to make sure, I'm not clear that that is captured in the recommendation. So just to make sure that, all the items, even if it's, because one of the things about this is that you're reading along and then there's a sentence about, this is, so just to make sure that thoroughness, and I'm not an engineer, but just to make sure all the necessary fixes have been captured. Deputy Warden, I see, or Councillor Marchand, you have your...
Yeah, if I remember correctly, there was also some other discussions about some of the purlins that may have been on an angle, a bolt or two wasn't in the right spot. So, yeah, I don't think any of those things are in the recommendations because I don't think they're really serious. He noticed some of the cross bracing didn't look like it was in the right spot because looking on the opposite side. Yeah, so, I mean...
Oh, I'm sorry, press your button again, sorry.
If Chris feels that those things need to be looked at, get them done. There's some purlins that there may have been some damage because the garage door was put in the back end, could have been hit or something. Those kind of notes were in there. It's been like that for quite some time. There hasn't been no renovations. This door was put on many, many, many years ago. But yeah, if anybody feels they should be done and they've been brought to our attention, get them done. Don't have an issue with that.
So yeah, and I totally agree with Councillor Marchand. I would say though that even if they are fairly minor, because they showed up in a report, could we just at least have them listed in whatever status update that Chris brings forward? Just so, even if it's just complete whatever, I just think because they've showed up in the report, it'd be nice. I think it's important for us to do that due diligence. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, you know how I like a list.
And I appreciate I'm not an engineer, so as I was reading this, I thought there may be times where it's described here and I'm not capturing the connection, but I think we need to make sure that there's been an exhaustive review of all the points here on a go-forward basis. Okay, any other, and I think, do we need a motion of council? I think we've directed staff, so I think we're fine. Okay, so seeing that there are no other items on the agenda, this meeting is adjourned.
You seem to think that be of the opinion that the snow load on the roof, the concerns that were raised, that can be mitigated somehow in just different various ways.
Yeah, I mean, we see it with commercial buildings sometimes. You see it with residential houses. You can see disasters happen. You have a really bad snowfall, your roof collapses. It's fairly rare, luckily, but it does happen. I have a lot of faith in our staff that if they see this, they're going to do something about it. And I know our director of public works spoke about how in the past he had reached out one time after one of the big storms, had a hard time finding a contractor to do that. So, maybe there's, maybe there's ways around, looking at it a little bit sooner, setting something up ahead of time. But I know the staff here is working on all that now. The report's given good information. There's risk there, but there's always risk. I don't think you're going to get, it would be pretty rare to have seen something come back and say there's absolutely no risk, right? But we just want to be aware of it. We want to make sure we do something about it. And if you did get to a point where the snow load was of such a weight that you have to close the building temporarily, nobody likes to see it, but so be it. If it has to be done for the safety of the residents, it has to be done. It doesn't mean that the building is closing entirely. It might mean that it's closed temporarily. But I mean, that is something you see in the winter months sometimes. There are contractors that'll do that kind of thing of clearing snow. It's they can attach tie downs to a building like that, and it can be done safely. There's a bit of planning involved, but it is possible.
Now, as far as the Richmond Arena goes, it looks like you guys are going to be making repairs to the floor, to the ice making facility and capacity of it, and then of course you guys are also keeping an eye on the snow load on the roof, just to make sure. So, does it seem as though the plans for the new facility are kind of being put off now for the time being? Just for the next couple of few years?
Well, we've always known that even if we said, golly, let's just build brand new, that we are a couple of years from that in terms of design and fundraising and funding applications and all of that. And what we heard loud and clear is that residents want a facility. They don't want to be a community without an arena. We know that the Civic Center is not far, but it doesn't have the capacity to absorb all of our ice time here there's no blocks of empty space that make up enough to our gentlemen's hockey would be gone, our minor hockey, etc. So residents have clearly said they want an arena. So what we said back in the winter was, okay, we know that we need to do some repairs, particularly the ice surface. So there's brine leaking through. Don't need to be an engineer to know that's not great. So when we made the motion to put money aside into reserves to start to address that issue, we said, but let's just get an engineer to look at some of the other things. So there is a 2019 report that talks about the arena, and there was a reference to the roof, but it acknowledged that, look, we didn't get a really good look at it, but something along the lines of, you need to keep an eye on that. And so we get this report from a structural engineer that we said, hey, we picked him. Can you please take a look at our roof? And two things came out of that for me. One is that the building is really in admirable shape. Like the people, going back to Hubert Krajcek, to the people who work there, just finished up in April. That building is in remarkably good shape. There are people who took real pride in that building, who made sure humidity control was on point. And so you don't have the rust that you would expect in a building of that age. Great. But there is a sentence or two in there that says, in order to protect the lives of occupants, you need to shut it down we need to protect residents. We need to be respectful of our responsibility to keep people safe. And we are also the stewards of the resources, taxpayer dollars. We need to make sure that we're being mindful of those. So there are recommendations about things that need to be fixed before November, i.e. before we open the arena. So, but some of it, we're not engineers. I don't know, snow load and 23 pounds per square foot. And, I'm not, that's beyond my purview. So we need staff, and we have engineers on staff, and we need to make sure that they can say to us, look, this is the report, here's what we've done. So it's really about due diligence. And you saw, real complete coordination of that way of thinking along the lines. We can invest in an old arena, but we cannot forget that it is an old arena. And there are times where we may very well have to say to people in the middle of a hockey game, sorry, everybody out. It's snowing and we are now above our snow load capacity. And if that's what we have to do to keep people safe, we absolutely are going to do that. But what does that say about how people get to enjoy a facility? So there's a lot for us to discuss, but we are all on point here, the same thing. Safety is paramount, and how do we make good fiscal decisions with that in mind?
After the meeting, Warden Lois Landry talked about odor complaints coming from the sewage treatment plant in Arichat. She discussed feedback about the new dog control bylaw, as well as the provincial antlerless deer draw.
Now, there have been complaints from groups and residents about a smell emanating from the Arichat sewer treatment plant for a couple of weeks now, I guess since the beginning of July or end of June. The municipality did issue a public statement earlier this month that mechanical issues and a lack of precipitation are leading to anaerobic or septic conditions causing the plant to emit gases. The municipality said Department of Public Works staff have been adding chemical treatment to the plant to help reduce the odor issues, and repairs took place. Maybe you can talk about what repairs are they talking about that took place at the plant?
Sure. And I want to begin with a bit of an apology. We did issue a statement, but we could have been on top of that much sooner. So, two residents who felt like, they were sort of waffling through that god-awful smell without real solid information from us here in the municipality. I apologize. We can do better, and we will do better in the future. What I will say, again, as not somebody who is an engineer, but there is an aerator that takes the sewage that comes in, does what it needs to do before it then goes on to its next journey. And that aerator got clogged up. And so some of that is, sure, there are definitely some things. So, if you go to the store now and go to wherever, if you have a new baby, you're going to see all kinds of flushable wipes. That's a bit of a misnomer. So there are some things that go into septic systems that can be problematic. But the basic fact is that we are dealing with a very, very old system here. And so old things, your washing machines, your septic systems at home, old things have challenges. So when it got to the point where there was some damage to something, it required us to dig everything up, and then something else broke, and then so on and so forth. So couple with that, it happened at a time where we've had very little rain. So there are other communities that are also struggling with smells. I think I've heard about it in Antigonish somewhere. There was in, I think, Bedford I just saw recently. Those things in those communities have been attributed to low rainfall, so very little precipitation. So what happened to us, I think, was really like a 1-2 punch. So we had a break, we had something that broke and that resulted in the smell, and then no way to rebound as quickly because of the lack of precipitation. So we're hopeful that we're getting on the other side of it now. That process takes a while to fix itself. So I think we have one more thing that we're fixing, and then it needs to kind of go through and catch up with all the work it hasn't done in the last couple of weeks.
Provincial government recently announced that the municipality county Richmond was approved under the Provincial Capital Assistance Program for upgrades to the Arichat water treatment plant. Do you think that at some point in time, and you're hoping that the PCAP can be useful to make upgrades that you need to the sewer treatment plant?
Yeah, one thing I hope residents are seeing is that you'll see, whether it's through this PCAP, through a number of green initiatives, climate change initiatives around flood mapping, and we are applying for all the things. And part of the struggle is our sewer systems, our septic, our wastewater systems we need to be successful in applying and getting funds that are meant for that. So right now what I can assure residents is if there's something, we're applying for it. We're applying for it. So this is promising in that we've seen money being directed to water and sewer services. So this is for water. We're hoping that in the next round of applications that we can throw our hat in the ring for will be around sewer. No joke, we need around $20 million to do all the things to get a new system that would unite Arichat and Petit de Gras. And we don't have 20 million, but if we could marry up with some funding available from the province or even the feds, we'll find the money.
As we discussed previously, Council approved a new dog control bylaw at the regular monthly meeting on June 24th. According to the municipality, the new bylaw is designed to update and strengthen regulations around dog ownership in Richmond County. It includes important changes to licensing, enforcement, and owner responsibilities. The municipality encourages all dog owners to review the updated regulations and ensure compliance. As part of the new bylaw, the municipality said lifetime dog registration has been introduced. Puppies under 1 year old must still be registered with an initial registration fee, and once a dog turns 1 year old, owners will then pay the lifetime registration fee. I've seen some concerns expressed about dogs that have to be picked up or for whatever reasons, and some other concerns on social media. What have you been hearing from the public about the dog control bylaw thus far?
I haven't been kind of paying attention too much to social media. Whenever I have, it seems like there's two sides to the story, right? So, you got somebody saying, I can't believe I'm going to have to pay $45. And you've got somebody saying, I can't believe they're not doing more about the dog that's terrorizing my kids in my yard. So just an explanation about why we register dogs, and for folks who are, I can't believe that this is a tax grab. I can't believe you're asking for $45. You've always had to register your dog. We've had a dog bylaw since forever. And you come to the municipality and you would pay $10 every year. And now we're saying, look, residents are busy, so give us $45 and never come back, right? But if you're a puppy, it's a year. So why, I think sometimes it helps to understand why. I would love it if we weren't responsible for dogs. I really would. But if you call me, Jake, and you say, pothole in my road, I'm going to say, call Trevor Boudrot. That's a provincial responsibility. If you have trouble with your passport, I'm going to say, call Jaime Baptiste. That's a federal responsibility. Dogs are municipal. The Municipal Government Act says dogs are the responsibility of municipality. And what we are concerned about is that we get calls from residents all the time about dogs that are loose, dogs that are threatening, dogs that are coming on to people's property, dogs that are scaring people. Now, does my dog Milo do that? No, definitely not. But we are responsible to put rules in place so that when things go badly with dogs, that the owner is responsible. So part of what happened with previous bylaw is that there was no teeth. We would get these dogs roaming through, and then somebody would say, well, it's not my dog. And then we didn't have a mechanism. So what we're asking is that you register your dog when it's a puppy. So if you get a dog and you buy him or you get him from a shelter and he's 2 years old, you don't have to do the puppy thing. But we're taking pictures of dogs so that if a dog goes missing and it's got a tag, or we can find out who's the responsible owner, right? So that's the point of registration. The $45 is so that you don't have to keep coming in. Once your dog is a year old, we'll take a picture of it, and that's pretty much what your dog's going to look like for forever, right? So it's to be able to discriminate between two different dogs. If you've got 5 huskies, you can at least have a fighting chance of figuring out which one is which. But some of the changes we made are actually because there were some things in our previous bylaw that just weren't right. If you have a pit bull and it's like a well-behaved and you're a good dog owner, none of our business. We can't discriminate on dogs based on breed. The law says that. So that part of it actually said you're not allowed to have this, and this. So for as many people who are concerned about, I can't believe you're asking this of me and you should stay away from my dog, I can tell you the number of calls that I get are from people who said, this bed, I don't even think this goes far enough. I've got a dog in my yard and it's terrorizing. And just people I work with. I had a colleague who, a dog got into their chicken coop, a closed chicken coop, and ate all the chickens. I've had a colleague who had a dog chase him while he was on a bike going through Rocky Bay, and he ended up breaking a vertebrae because the dog bit him while he was driving by, right? So those are the things that we are responsible to have rules for. Don't love it, but it is our responsibility. And this bylaw is meant to make sure everybody understands how we're going to deal with dogs that are not doing the things they're supposed to do.
Hunters can now enter the draw for one of 5,825 antlerless deer hunting stamps for the 2025 hunting season. According to the province, the draw helps the management of the province's deer population by allowing licensed hunters to harvest a female deer in areas where deer numbers are higher, which supports healthy and balanced wildlife populations, the province is saying. Stamps are available for 5 of the 10 deer management zones in mainland Nova Scotia and boat zones in Cape Breton, but antlerless deer stamps are not needed for the other mainland zones because they are open for harvesting deer of either sex, which is something you lobby for in Richmond County, but apparently that didn't happen. That's not going to happen this year, this fall?
Right. So, sure, that's a way to manage the deer population. They did that last year. If it was going to manage the deer population would be managed. Now, we've gone through a bit of a reprieve because typically when does have fawns, they kind of stay in the woods, they kind of, but they're coming out now. And, you drive by, you see a deer that's been hit by a car, you follow things on Facebook, that Nova Scotia thing, like somebody on a bicycle ran into a deer, right? Like this weekend. You can't even drive your bike. And the stories that we're hearing about the frustration, again, as we get into late summer, as the deer start to, and as the does start bringing the fawns. And so, so the only change, I think, to last year is I do believe that there are a few more doe tags available, and they are doing the bonus stamp. So first off, if you are a hunter, for the love of all that is beautiful and holy, apply for a doe tag, please and thank you. And reach out to your nearest hunter and or landowner and say, look, can I hunt on your land? I own land. You want to hunt on my, God bless. So number one, if you're a hunter, great. Number two, if you are hunting and you have a bonus tag, keep in mind the bonus tag is for either sex. So we do have some people who hunt and they go away to hunt because the bucks are somewhere else. But really, please consider coming home and hunting the second after your bonus tag. And that can be a doe. But we have, I don't know what else I could say to natural resources to say we are frustrated. We have written, we've done all the things. We've written to Nova Scotia Power and said, you're going to clean the roads, clean ours first because of the deer. We've written to Public Works, you're going to clear the roads, clear ours first because of the deer. We've written to Public Works and said, here are all the reasons why that wasn't enough last year. It's not going to be enough this year, yada, yada, yada. So call your MLA, Trevor Boudrot, call the Department of Natural Resources. I will say something that maybe not everybody knows about. If you can show that you have lost $250, I think that's the dollar amount of anything, vegetables, stuff in your garden, if they broke through a fence, if they ate your flowers, you can actually also get a nuisance certificate. So you can shoot something on your property, doe or buck. So it is frustrating for residents. It is probably the most significant number of calls I take is about the deer.
An Inverness County man facing 7 charges in connection with an assault with a knife was released from custody after a court appearance. Inverness County District RCMP said an aggravated assault took place on July 7th at around 4 a.m. on Diane's Lane in Waikagama. According to the RCMP, officers determined that 2 men were involved in an altercation when one man assaulted the other with a knife. The RCMP said the 30-year-old victim, who's known to the suspect, suffered serious injuries and was transported to hospital by EHS. On July 8th, the RCMP said officers arrested 29-year-old Hobie Dwayne Dennis of Wakaba and charged him with aggravated assault, 2 counts of assault, assault with a weapon, possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose, break and enter with intent, uttering threats, and mischief. The RCMP said Dennis was remanded into custody and appeared in Port Hawkesbury Provincial Court on July 9th. But according to Nova Scotia Public Prosecution Services, the matter was adjourned at the Crown's request. During a court appearance on July 11th, Public Prosecution Services said Dennis was released with a $1,500 financial obligation and restrictive conditions in place. Public Prosecution Services added that Dennis is scheduled to return to court in Wagmatcook on August 6th for election and or plea. The town of Port Hawkesbury and the municipality of the county of Richmond were approved for provincial infrastructure grants. Among the Provincial Capital Assistance Program grant recipients, the municipality of the county of Richmond was approved for $100,003 for upgrades to the Arichat water treatment plant. The town of Port Hawkesbury was approved for $244,921 under the Municipal Innovation Program for the Port Hawkesbury and Port Hastings Municipal Services Study. The province said the budget of the Provincial Capital Assistance Program has increased from $690,000 to $1.69 million, expanding their capacity for early-stage involvement in municipal infrastructure projects. The program covers up to 50% of eligible costs for priority projects such as water and wastewater assessments, stormwater system upgrades, and improvements to water treatment facilities, they noted. The provincial government said this more than doubles the amount of money available through a program for water, sewer, and other priority infrastructure projects. John Lohr, Minister of Municipal Affairs, said the historic investments his government is making in municipalities reflect its commitment to build more homes and stronger communities across Nova Scotia. Lohr said investments in municipalities to upgrade water systems, protect against flood risks, and enable growth are important. The province said the Municipal Innovation Program funds up to 75% of projects that support innovative approaches to regional collaboration that contribute to the long-term sustainability of local governments. The province added that all of these annual programs are application-based. The Nova Scotia Community College is making changes to food services at its campuses across the province. On July 9th, the NSCC said it made the decision to move to provide on-campus food services through a single partner. Lynn Hartwell, Vice President of Campuses and Communities, wrote via email that food services at campuses were offered through a combination of third-party services and NSCC-operated cafeterias and cafes, but she wrote that this model is not financially sustainable since profits at some locations did not offset ongoing losses at others. Hartwell wrote that the college cannot continue to absorb these annual losses. By working with a single, province-wide food services partner, she wrote that NSCC will continue to provide access to food at every campus according to the level and nature of activity at that location. Regrettably, Hartwell wrote that this decision affects colleagues at 8 campus locations who provided exceptional food service, as well as employees with outgoing third-party providers who have been valued members of the campus communities. Hartwell wrote that the NSCC worked closely with the Nova Scotia Government and General Employees Union to ensure they meet the commitments within its collective agreement on behalf of the college's food services employees. NSCC followed all the provisions of the contracting out clause as agreed to by all parties, and employees were given severance and their options, which includes the opportunity to explore working with the new provider or have the NSCC continue to look for upcoming vacant positions, she wrote. The college's new provider, Aramark Canada Limited, is headquartered in Mississauga, Ontario, and is an established food services provider for many post-secondaries in the province, Hartwell wrote. She wrote that they have committed to interviewing interested NSCC employees affected by this decision for positions with them for which they qualify. While it's not easy saying goodbye to longtime colleagues who've contributed so much to campuses, as a publicly funded institution whose primary focus is post-secondary education, Hartwell wrote that the college determined it could no longer sustain ongoing annual 6-figure losses. By moving forward with this new model, Hartwell wrote that the NSCC has a financially sustainable approach for providing food services at campuses, while ensuring its resources are focused on delivering exceptional learning opportunities. The provincial government confirmed that the Housing for Healthcare project in Port Hawkesbury is underway, which is being overseen by the Housing Trust of Nova Scotia. Earlier this month, an official opening was held for a project in Guysborough. The province said the complex has 8 units of 1 and 2 bedrooms and is close to local amenities, as well as Guysborough Memorial Hospital. The province said the building is fully occupied with healthcare workers. Because of this housing, Guysborough Tracadie MLA Greg Morrow said critical healthcare positions have been filled and new health professionals have been recruited to the community. The province said it also acquired a 6-unit affordable housing project in Boylston in partnership with Community First, Guysborough County Housing Association. The province noted that the Boylston site has 5 2-bedroom units and a single bedroom unit with rents ranging from $750 to $850 per month. Thank you for watching. Please tune in again to find out what we will be talking about on The Record.